I hate to name drop, but I was incredibly fortunate one day to have dinner with Mick Jagger, and I asked him, does he still get nervous before he plays? And he said yes.
The one thing that I feel like at least women are told is that beauty is the most important thing about them. And we're sold that over and over again. I mean, when you look online, even at like the events and the models, it's like you're looking at Fashion Nova and Revolve. And I'll tell you, Scott, every girl wants to go to the Revolve parties.
Yeah.
And every girl wants to be a Revolve model and like do that whole thing. That's what looks sexy to everyone. It's like that's what's making the money. Like you're that hot, and you look at the numbers. Like who's following who?
I think it's people want a story now. That's the bottom line. Like every brand I talk to wants a story. They want somebody with a story, and that's more interesting to them than just someone that's attractive.
Today's episode of Beyond is brought to you by MoonPay. MoonPay is your portal to Web3 where you can transact with peers globally and own your digital identity. MoonPay makes it fast and simple to jumpstart your Web3 journey. Quickly use your debit or credit card to buy and sell crypto and purchase digital collectibles. Visit moonpay.com to get started. There's so many places we could start because you've worked in so many different industries.
There are a lot of different places we could start.
How about drumming?
Well, I started my life as a drummer, and I was telling you briefly outside that when I was a kid, I've been playing drums since I was like 8 years old. And when I was a kid, I said to my dad, I was always into music and played in nightclubs since I was like 13. I had to sneak into nightclubs, and we'd be downstairs with our fake IDs at 13, obviously not allowed to be in the club.
Yeah.
But we were playing in clubs when I was a kid, and I told my mom and dad I wanted to go to PIT, and my dad's like, "Great, you want to go to the Pittsburgh Institute of Technology? You want to be a scientist?" I'm like, "Actually, no, I want to go to the Percussion Institute of Technology. I want to go to LA and be a rock star, Dad." They weren't exactly excited about it.
And you went there.
I did. And I joined a band that was like Guns N' Roses adjacent. Half the guys were on hard drugs. Like, I don't know if that's what they had in mind. I like really lived the 80s, like crazy hard rock, like lifestyle that was going on back then. And some of the greatest times ever in my life, because back then music and the music scene in LA was so vibrant that people would wait in line to get into nightclubs around the block. And I don't know if you know, but like in the late 80s, early 90s in LA, people would line the Sunset Strip on the weekends. There was like thousands of people on the strip with the hair tees, the leather pants, passing out flyers to go see their bands. Everyone looked like they were in Motley Crue or Poison or Guns N' Roses. Visually was the most incredible time in life.
Yeah. You see some of that still.
If you
outside
go to
of like Troubadour and places like that.
I think if you go to the Rainbow, there's still like a time warp. There's still people in there that think it's like 1985.
Yeah.
They never got the memo that we're in 2022. They're like, I can still wear spandex and, like some kind of leather vest, but it's not really, I don't know if it's really happening anymore. I still hold the flag for rock and roll and love rock and roll because that's my soul and who I am. But back then...
In what way is that your soul and who you are?
That's because I started in music, and I still very much am involved in it. So, I do a music podcast, and obviously I work with Spin Magazine, and I'm around bands. I work with bands. I work with bands on the branding side and artists and musicians. And so it never left me. It's like you're into tech. As far as I know, you're into NFTs.
That's a new thing. That's a new thing, though.
It's a new thing, but now that you got deep into it the last couple of years, Nicole, I'm imagining like maybe that'll never leave who you are, right?
Yeah.
Because now, as soon as I got into music as a kid, like it just never left me.
What's the difference between playing in your garage or wherever you play the drums and playing in front of 20,000 people with someone like Lana Del Rey?
I hate to name drop, but I was incredibly fortunate one day to have dinner with Mick Jagger, and I asked him, does he still get nervous before he plays? And he said yes. And I definitely still get nervous because I don't do it all the time. I have like a company, now a couple companies I started in this world in fashion. And sometimes I watch this video on YouTube we played in Brazil, and I was so nervous I was like hyperventilating. And I almost had to stop playing because I just was like, my arms used to get, I had like a surgery on my arm. I had an injury many years ago. I had to stop playing. And I think when you don't breathe properly, a lot of cramping sets in. And so during that gig, which was the first really major show I played with her, I literally was like 1 second away from having to stop because I was so nervous. My arms totally cramped. Like, imagine if you have a cramp in your leg and someone says sprint, like it's almost impossible.
Yeah, you can't.
So I got through it because someone like I don't know, threw something at the stage, and she walked off stage, and the band walked off, and I was able to like rub my arm so I could kind of get back on the stage. But I was like literally seconds away from having this, and I was like, if I stop playing, I will definitely not be in this band. Like the first gig I played with her, again, granted, so nervous. And there does come a point in time, I guess, after a couple songs when it's like magic, and you hopefully stop getting in your head. But I'm like Larry David on the drums a little bit. Like I'm thinking whatever can go wrong will go wrong, and then everyone will stop moving in the audience. They'll stop dancing, and they're going to look at me. You know, it's my fault because I'm the drummer. But yeah, that was incredible. And then I guess the difference, kind of back to your question, I'm digressing. You know, in your garage, you're just playing for yourself. And when you're on stage in front of that many people, you feel like you have a responsibility to like be great, or the band has to be good so that people don't leave and say, I just paid like couple $100 for this ticket and the band sucked.
This?
Right. That drummer sucked, you know? You don't want that.
No, you don't want that.
No.
Man, it's crazy. Your career is just, you're all over the place.
All over the place.
Which is, you're a
I'm here now, look.
You're here now, multi-hyphenate.
Right, I guess.
You know, which is great. And I love that. And that's so inspiring to other people.
Thank you.
I want to go back to LA for a second because you've been in LA so long. How have you watched the city change? Because you described it one way and it's different now.
Yeah, I was here in the late 80s, and to be fair, after I was here for about 10 years, I moved back to New York. So I've been back and forth my whole life. Now I've been back here for like 4 or 5 years. I never really found my way in LA versus New York. I mean, New York is great where you can just walk down the street and you will literally run into 30 people. I was always considered myself like not the official mayor of Soho, but I spent 30 years like just pounding the streets there and going to events and meeting people and meeting thousands of people. So, I mean, I'm very lucky and happy and blessed that when I walk down the street, I get to meet so many people that I know and run into them, and it's really great. So I feel very welcome there. And you know how it is here. Like, you can know someone and never see them, and they could be, quote unquote, like a good friend. Something about the culture in LA, I mean, no one really works here, do they? I mean, it's a strange thing.
I mean, are we working right now?
I don't know. I know I go to my office and I have people that work with me and I have a staff, but like, I meet so many people here that don't work, and you can't really live in New York and not work. Like, if you live in New York and you're not hustling, and you're not on your A game, and you can't like waffle around. Like, you have to be doing something. So, and you're right. I mean, even like talking about, like, I met some guy at a party that is like, "Are you into Web 5?" I'm like, I haven't figured out what Web 3 is.
There's a Web 5 because I didn't even know about this.
He was like, you're on Web 5, right? What's LA? Like, people would say all kinds of weird stuff. So when I have, and I'm probably digressing a little bit, but when I have delved a little bit into that new media and new world, because I probably was referring to like, social media years ago. I think I was the first agent in the modeling world to work with influencers, as far as I know. Definitely one of the first, for sure, when everybody said it was stupid and it was cheap, and look where we've gone.
Yeah,
right?
and you're like, I know this can be something.
Look, I mean, to be fair, we didn't make money with it the first couple of years, but now, like, if you don't have influencers you work with as part of like a fashion company, then something's wrong, because and I think last I checked, it was like a $4 billion industry. But anyway, when I go into these rooms, like in the metaverse, and I wear the goggles and whatever, I mean, for me, it feels like Sims still, and it doesn't really feel like a place that if I lead an exciting life outside of, the internet, like, I'm just going to actually be in those rooms with those people and live that life. I feel like it's more for people that don't have access to our world. And I mean, you're at the same things I'm at, probably even more tech stuff that I'm not at. But you're in great rooms with great people, with thought leaders and CEOs and celebrities, and right? Your life is very exciting for what I see from the outside. I'm going to assume that's correct.
I mean, yes and no, because there's elements of my personal life that I feel like suffer because I'm always out and I'm always, I'm meeting people and I'm like, oh, I can do this with them and that. And it's really exciting to be able to like, build and think of ways that like media is changing and tech is changing the landscape and all of that. But
when you go inside these rooms in like the metaverse, are you like, I'd rather be there or at the actual party?
I mean, I'm not in the metaverse most of the time because everything that I'm at is like a conference or a party that's there to sort of
support
that world,
right.
but nobody's there all the time. Like, I don't think we're at that
it's
place
not there
yet.
It's not there yet. But anyway, I think that, yes, I mean, myself included, I'm usually on my phone late at night and I fall asleep holding the thing, like
Me too.
an hour of scrolling over nonsense between the news feed, which will drive anyone to jump out a window, which is never great if you look at it too much because everything's like nuclear war and like, oh, great, I'm feeling great after. I should go to sleep right now. So from that to like just, again, the social media stuff, which, you know, I've been really trying to figure out the algorithm of TikTok. I really don't claim that I have, but I feel like it's just a place. And when I go on there and I post stuff that kind of goes viral lately, people just want to hate on each other. Like, hey, like this singer's old, or this one, like this person's an ass. Like if you don't have something nice to say, maybe don't say it. You know, like why does everyone feel the need to spew like hate and negativity online? I don't know. Just be positive.
Yeah,
it's so easy to like be nice and to love each other and be positive in this world. And for whatever reason, like, I mean, I listen. Of course, I like when things kind of go viral because it means people are, they're paying attention to whatever I'm doing. Because to be fair, I never figured out TikTok I still haven't figured it out, but I'm still at least getting some content now that seems to have some legs. But not for the sake of like calling like singers old and terrible. And you don't look at it if you don't like it. Why do you gotta, like?
How do you think women feel? That's all.
Terrible.
That's the only criticism they get. It's
I think
like
it should be illegal. Like bullying online should be like illegal. It should be like you wouldn't go up to someone in person and punch them in the face and say you're ugly. Like no one would. The negativity that's online. No one would ever do that to you if they met you in person. But because there's like people feel it's anonymous,
safer and behind a keyboard.
But it should be illegal.
I agree.
So
I agree. It's really damaging, and people are already suffering enough with the hardships that life throws their way, and then on top of that, they're scrolling and they have to see that.
Look at your newsfeed if you want to get depressed. If you want to be positive, just go out there.
That's the other thing. That's the other thing as like a consumer of media, which we all are. If you're spending time on your phone and you're scrolling on any app, you sort of have the power to curate your feed.
You do. I guess mine, obviously, I looked at one like thing about, war and nuclear war, and now my entire feed every day is like nuclear war. I'm like, that's the last thing I want to look at every day. Like, please,
so if you could
take it away. I don't know.
If you could curate your feed, then how would you do it?
There was that show that came out during the pandemic. I think it was John Krasinski. Is that his name, from The Office? Mm-hmm. I think it was called like Good News, and everything was like positive.
Oh yeah,
things.
yeah.
Why not? Like I don't need to see like just show me some positivity in the world. We know how hard it is. We know what's going on. But again, like I think it takes 1 second to be nice and 1 second not to be a nice person, right? So it's very easy to be just to be positive out there. So
I agree,
I'm not saying I want to sugarcoat it. I just don't want see that every day, right?
1,000%. But I also think like that's why a lot of these like therapists and inner child trauma coaches and people like that are thriving on the internet. I mean, you look at that industry, the personal development industry, and it's booming. We're the communities we were raised in healthy. It's like a lot of us, belong to religious organizations or private schools or whatever it was, where there were people that we saw over and over again because it was scheduled weekly or monthly or daily or whatever, and that could be considered a community.
Yeah.
But a lot of those places weren't really helpful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There were places where you felt like you needed to impress people or you needed to follow rules that you didn't agree with, or you needed to be someone you weren't to fit in.
So you want to form a new community?
Always.
Yeah.
But it's like who's doing that, And that's what I think about, because
I'm big on that, but does that exist in LA? Because I feel like it's so.
Does it exist in New York?
It does. I mean, like I am still friends with the people that I grew up with in New York, and my social circle in New York never went away. Like the same, it kind of grows and it expands in LA. Again, I feel it's like very fragmented. If you don't make an effort, like I said, to see your friends and people, unless you're throwing these events like you're talking about, like I don't see people.
But what's the difference between the people in New York? What are they doing that we're not doing?
Well, I think it's easier just to get around New York, right? The same way Miami is a little bit walkable at this point, right? If you're like south of 5th, there's Carbone, there's all these places you can walk to. Like LA, nothing is walkable. You have like Melrose Place, Abbot Kinney, Larchmont.
And they're all so far from each other?
There's like 6 streets to walk on.
But people will drive if they know something's happening.
They will, but you won't go to 3 or 4 things in a night. Like in New York, you jump around from Zero Bond to the Nines to Butterfly to Socialist, whatever it is. Like you're just bopping around and you're going to see like 500 people in one night, right? And so you really can't bop around in LA. You just sort of end up where you end up, and then maybe you'll go to another place. But I don't know. I mean, I listen, both cities have great things to offer. So does Miami. They all have their pluses and minuses. I'm just a New Yorker, so I always feel closer to where I grew up, like anyone would feel closer to wherever they were raised,
Yeah. I mean, I feel close to LA, but people think that I'm from New York based on just like the way that I talk and move in the world.
You were born here.
I was born here.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Rare, right?
Rare. Yeah. People
Rare.
always say that to me when they meet me. It's like everyone flies here to do the thing that they want to do.
Also, like everyone here is in the entertainment industry, like you mentioned. So
Yeah.
I was wondering today, like I was talking about it with my old assistant because she also acts. Like, how many people actually act in LA? There's got to be like, I would say probably 200,000 people that are pursuing acting.
You mean,
in LA.
but okay, get paid to act or actually act?
Just trying,
Either?
auditioning. I mean, when you think about, because it's like a daunting thing when you think about the number of people. Anytime anyone gets a role, gets a modeling gig, an influencer gets a job, and act, it's like a small victory because it's so hard now. It's so inundated. And you're right, with our phone, everyone's like doing something, right? It could be anything, right? But everyone's creating some kind of content. So anytime anyone gets anything, it literally is like a small victory when you consider how many people are in a city like LA trying to do the same thing.
Tell us some of the people that you've represented because I know.
Sure. I mean, I think early on, I was super fortunate to work with people like A$AP Rocky and work on the fashion branding for him. I worked with Rocky Barnes many years ago. I still work with her. Kira Frogny, the Blonde Soud, who's done incredibly well. A lot of great musicians. I mean, a lot of big names. A lot of times I work with record labels. So I'll work with Warner Brothers, Atlantic, Columbia, and I represent their roster. And we collaborate. I bring them deals. I actually really go out and look for endorsement deals and deals for influencers on like a daily basis. And then I have a staff that works with models because for many years, I worked with the supermodels like Arena Shayk and Candace Swamppool and Naomi Campbell, Claudia Schiffer. I still work with Helena Christensen, Devin Aoki, a lot of names. I don't want to name drop too much because,
I mean, I asked you to be fair.
But yeah, a lot of great names. I've been very fortunate. But I always loved branding early on. So I wasn't necessarily a guy that wanted to get into like modeling, but I had a cousin that was in the industry. I started working there as a driver many years ago. This is like pre-Uber. So people would come to LA, they needed to get to castings, and my cousin's like, you can intern here and we'll pay you gas money. And I would drive people around. Never thought I would stay in it. I had an injury to my arm. I couldn't play drums for a while. And I was working at record labels, and I worked for the Red Hot Chili Peppers manager for a little bit when I wasn't like playing. And I never got to where I wanted to be in music on the business end because people looked at me as an artist still. And they're like, that kid with the long hair is a drummer. We're never going to let him, own a company or progress or anything. So I would get paid like minimally. But I think it helped me work really hard because my dad always worked super hard and he used to get up like at 5 a.m, drive to the Bronx every morning. He had an automotive parts business. So I think I got my work ethic from him. And so, I mean, again, I love telling the story of being a driver because it goes to show you, like, now I've opened up a couple of these companies and I started out like just interning. And I remember going to the Red Hot Chili Peppers manager, Lindy Getz, years ago, and I think I was getting paid on Tuesdays and not Thursdays, just like gas money, maybe $20, I don't know. And I said to the woman that was running the office, hey, I'd love to get paid both days. I don't know if that's like a big ask, but I mean, she's like, well, I spoke to Lindy. He said, you can keep coming in like this or not come in at all. I was like, well, there's my answer. I got to do something else. So I'm only asking for $20, whatever. Back then that was like 50 to me. But yeah, I mean, I feel like you got to pay your dues. I don't know if people really want to go to offices anymore. I feel like with the pandemic, it definitely, things have changed a lot. I think the idea of going to an office, the concept for especially kids, they're like, why should I go to an office if I can make all this money on my phone, whatever it may be. And so I still believe in, the idea of community, I guess, and going to an office and working with your team and being like, hey, what are you working on? What are you working on? And doing meetings together and building something. But I think culture has changed a lot. I don't even know if we'll ever be back to an office like 5 days a week. And maybe that's excessive. Maybe 3 days a week is like kind of somewhere in the middle. But
yeah. I know what you're talking about because I grew very fast as a content creator on multiple channels. I had Beyond the Interview on Instagram, and then I got big on Clubhouse, and then I grew on TikTok, and then I grew on Twitter.
By the way, I got to follow you. I only follow you on a couple of these things. So
oh, yeah. I'll follow you too. I'll follow you too. But
follow for follow.
Follow for follow right there. But the thing is, working with a team and coming into an office was so much more rewarding for me than just sitting there and creating content. And if I'm sitting there alone on a cell phone, it does feel very isolating. It doesn't really feel good to do everything alone. I don't think people realize that there's a culture that I feel in at least the US that it's like, be independent, do these things, you need to be on your own 2 feet. And it's like, in some ways, yes, but in a lot of ways, no. You know what I mean?
True.
Things that excellent things that get done are done with teams.
You need an army for sure. You can't do it
You
alone.
need a freaking army.
Exactly.
It's like every time you watch an award show, and you see all the people that were involved in these productions, and anytime someone wins an award, boom, they're thanking this person and that person, and no one does anything worthwhile alone.
No. By the way, I'm jealous because I don't even have a producer on my podcast. So I see all these people here. I've got like me and usually just the musicians, and I'm very jealous, I have to say, because it's great. You walk in here, it's very welcoming, nice lighting. I have like, my lighting's not as good. I'm a little jealous.
And see,
but I'm not mad. I'm just happy for you. Like,
yeah,
I just
inspired, really.
Inspired,
I feel
inspired.
like anytime I feel that way too, I'm like, reframe. I'm like, am I jealous or am I inspired? Because this person has something and did something, and I'm like, okay, if they did it, I can do it.
Exactly.
Like, Scott, I believe in you. You can have you can have this. But I mean, I'm inspired by you. I mean, everything that you've done on the branding side, like I'm excited to learn from you.
I never worked with like I don't know, like this sort of new media personality where you're big in crypto, you're big in NFT, you're big in Web3, you're big in new media. So usually I've worked with like singers or maybe some actors or obviously models for many years, but you're like a new genre of personality, right? In a way, you created a new lane for yourself, which, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons you've also done very, very well, because you created your own lane where there maybe wasn't one before, right? So we were talking, so I was like, oh, I'm super intrigued. Like, how do I work with someone like yourself? So, but sorry for digressing. What was the question was that I really remember.
The question was, I was introduced to you coming from a different field for sure, but you work with all these people in entertainment. And fashion.
Yep.
And what are the other industries?
Well, it's mostly like celebrities, a lot of musicians, as I said, influencers, like traditional like fashion-y influencers, beauty influencers, and models.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when I look through our mutual friends, like they're mostly models. I have to say.
Yeah. Well, we probably represent.
You probably
a bunch
worked with them, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so when someone comes to you and they're like, "Hey, I've amassed this following, and I want to get brand deals, and I want to, I want to be repped by you." What do you say to them? What's
Well, there's something interesting
what do you look for?
Yeah, there's something interesting that's gone on, which you know very well about, because I'm sure this has happened with you the last few years, where brands go directly to talent, right? So in a sense, they cut out companies like mine, and it has been going on for the last 2, 3, 4 years. So it's a very interesting landscape, because when I started it many years ago, I'm working with influencers like, initially, I think I was talking to Hugo Boss, and I was dealing with them on a fashion campaign. They're like, well, so-and-so is just going to post on their Instagram. Instagram had just started. And I'm like, well, I think you have to pay for that. That's like a billboard usage or a television usage or a print usage. It's another usage. Like, you should really be paying for that.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. We'll just throw it in. I'm like, no. This is like a new form of media, but you need to pay for that. And initially, brands were like not having it. So it's funny, again, where life has gone, right? I think there are some like model type agencies now that represent people like Kendall Jenner, and I'm sure she makes more than like everyone else in the entire company, right?
I can't even imagine.
There's no question, right? So it's interesting, but I think like, again, in this new landscape that we're in, like brands are going directly to talent. So I think ideally I'm asking people like, okay, well, are people coming to directly? What kind of deals are you doing? Are you getting paid for what you're doing? Like, there's definitely been a shift of like just sexy pictures to like people with a lot of substance, somebody with something to say.
Are people looking for substance?
I think so, because I mean, early on I did, we were all just trying to figure it out. So, we were all kind of experimenting with what was working in the space. And initially, people were doing like pictures in bikinis and sexy pictures. And then all of a sudden it's like, people and brands now want people with a cause that are, tied to a charity. Obviously everyone, there's this new world where everyone has to, and rightly so, should be included in this world, right? So, again, is somebody working with brands already? Are they getting paid, or are they just posting pictures and not monetizing it? So then it's like a puzzle. It's like finding out the right brands to work with the right people. I speak to brands every day. Like this morning, I was speaking to someone for Uggs and for MAC Cosmetics, as an example. So
I love MAC. I'm wearing MAC
there
lipstick.
You go. So then it's like a puzzle. I'm trying to find, sometimes they ask me now for personalities, or they very rarely just want like only models, right? They want people with something to say, someone who's a great surfer, or someone that's a snowboarder, or someone that, again, has a charity, or they have a point of view that, about something specific that they're looking for. So, yeah, I always look at it just like taking the pieces of the puzzle and putting them together. It's like finding the right talent for the right brand and the fit. And so, and people approach me all the time. Like, I was at Basel, I met an artist who does sculptures that's doing well, but I was like, listen, to be fair, I've never represented someone that's just a flat out artist that does sculptures. Like, I don't know if, I talk to enough brands that are I don't know if the Gap is looking for a, sculptor. I don't know if Uggs is looking for a sculptor. Certainly, I've never seen a sculptor in a MAC Cosmetics ad, right?
But look at my industry. I mean,
exactly.
I did a brand deal with like Chipotle. I was in the Twitter commercial, and I'm a Web3, crypto tech media person. Like, that actually makes me so happy to hear, because living in LA, and I'll just say this as a woman with a large network of friends and peers, and I feel like I know a ton of people. And the one thing that I feel like at least women are told is that beauty is the most important thing about them. And we're sold that over and over again. I mean, when you look online, even at like the events and the models, it's like you're looking at Fashion Nova and Revolve, and I'll tell you, Scott, every girl wants to go to the Revolve party.
Yeah.
And every girl wants to be a Revolve model and like do that whole thing. That's what looks sexy to everyone. It's like that's what's making the money. Like, you're that hot, and you look at the numbers, like who's following who.
I think it's people want a story now. That's the bottom line. Like, every brand I talk to wants a story. They want somebody with a story, and that's more interesting to them than just someone that's attractive.
Wow, that you have no idea how refreshing that is to hear.
I mean, what I do, and now someone else you talk to could tell you something else, but that's what I find to be very true.
So when you work with models, do you sit down with them and say, like, look, what's your story? What are you passionate about? What do you care about in this world? Because for the longest time, just getting by with looks was everything.
Yeah. I mean, my team really works with the day-to-day modeling. The modeling business in LA is much different than the modeling business in New York. In LA, it's like 70% e-com, primarily e-com. I mean, you do have other brands
and
here.
New York is like high fashion?
Yeah, New York's high fashion. You have all the editorial in New York. You have a lot of the campaigns. And then you have Paris and London and Milan, where you have the Dolce & Gabbanas of the world, and the Fendis and the Chanels and Celine. I mean, in fact, I just went to the Celine show the other day in LA, and that was an extravaganza. That was like the biggest show that I've been to in ages. I mean, I don't know if they put like $15 million into that show, but it was like incredible.
All I'm hearing is that I need to be your +1.
Exactly. So we'll make that happen. But that was incredible. That was a fashion show in LA that they rented out the Wiltern. They had like Iggy Pop, The Strokes, and Interpol play, and the Kills were DJing, and it was amazing. So I feel like, again, people are like, Fashion Week is changing. It used to be you'd show Fashion Week in February and September. Now I don't even know what they were showing, because we're almost in December, or we are in December, and not almost, we're in December.
Yeah.
And their show was just the other day. So like, I don't, it's not traditionally like every Fashion Week is like, whatever city there's during a certain time frame. So they just did their own thing. And it was an incredible spectacle. So, again, like I think that people just want a story now, and I think it is pretty refreshing for me too. So when my staff sits with the models, I think one of the things they do is they do ask them, like, hey, are you a surfer? Do you do yoga? Because we deal with a lot of athleisure brands in LA. Alo Yoga is doing incredibly well. Obviously, Fabletics does very well. Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of companies in LA that are not in New York, but there's a lot of the business here is e-com versus New York, which, as you mentioned, is high fashion.
Yeah. So what are some of the biggest hardships being a content creator? It doesn't have to be model, but just like being in this ecosystem and spending your time, filming everything that you do. It seems like that's the way we're living now.
Well, you know this better than anyone, but I feel like it's like a full-time job, right? Even myself doing a podcast with Spin Magazine, I probably spend hours a day on it, right? I've got to create the TikTok video, the Twitter thing. I'm trying to figure out Reddit. I don't know what that is. It must be the most unuser-friendly website in the world.
Yeah.
I don't even understand how someone created that, and it's so complicated. It's like you got to tag a million things. And like, I don't know if anyone looks at it, because I have no idea what I'm doing with that. But you constantly have to just be pumping out content, right? And if you want people to be engaged, I mean, it's like, I think those algorithms reward you if you're constantly churning out content, whether it be Instagram Reels Reels or TikTok or whatever it is. If you post like once a month, they're not going to reward you and, allow you to grow. And sometimes they like shadow ban you. So it's a full-time job, and no one probably understands that more than yourself, because I feel like you're always doing content, right? So working with people in this space, I have people that just are probably doing content. Maybe they're doing content 8 hours a day. I'm just doing that with my podcast, which is a few hours a day. So, but then again, if somebody was paying me X amount of dollars to do an Instagram reel or whatever, I would probably be doing that every day for hours too, because it's hard, and it's hard to create, compelling content, but it's a pretty cool job if you're fortunate enough and blessed enough to be able to do that for a living, right?
Yeah. Is there anyone that you like that you can point to that you think, wow, they're doing it right, they're a good case study?
Well, if you look at like the blonde Saud who I work with, Kiara, she's like killed it. I mean, she has her own product line for years in Europe. She's sort of like the OG, almost like the Kim Kardashian of Europe, and done so incredibly well. And she was one of the first to really do so well in fashion, and her whole family is in the business. And she's just, beyond. I mean, she gets paid super well, and also has created her own lane for herself. And being one of the first, and really, there's some people that the word influencer is a strange word to me, because I don't know what anyone's really influencing. But there are these like OG influencers that started out early on in fashion that really probably did influence people to buy certain things. And now that word is thrown around so frequently that anyone like with a phone is an influencer. What are they influencing? Like, I don't think like 99% of the people are actually influencing anything. But she's someone that I look at that's built a real business, and an incredibly successful business. And I think everyone, if you're in the business and you follow fashion, you should look up to her as like the role model. Like, she should be giving like courses at Stanford. And she probably already has, for all I know, but she's done so well. And also a great example of someone that's built a brand, right? Because there's one thing just to post on Instagram. There's another to create products. And again, like when I'm dealing with celebrities now and I bring them like a makeup campaign offer or whatever, maybe everyone looks at, Rihanna and Savage Fenty, and they look at Kylie and they're like, or they look at Lizzo now and they're like, well, why should I do this endorsement if I could just start my own brand?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And to be fair, not everyone does well with these of their own, all their own brands, but the ones that do super well, they look at like the endorsement business as a little bit like not as fulfilling when they can own a good chunk of their own business now, which I fully understand. But it makes what I do to be a little bit more challenging, because it's really hard to find makeup campaigns for people and like multi-million-dollar offers. And when you find them and people turn them down, it's tough, because that could change my business for the year.
Are people turning them down because of that reason?
People turn them down, but again, I'm talking about like sometimes very big celebrities, right? Because they again look at Kylie Jenner and they're like, well, I could start my own line.
It's crazy what the Kardashians have done. Everything that they do is monetizable.
Yeah.
Everything that they do. And then the industries that they go into. Just the fact that like Kim Kardashian now is in private equity. And I remember people were so confused, and some people were angry at that. But
I respect them.
I respect their hustle. And to be honest, when I heard that, at first I was confused, but then I was like, you know what? For everything that they've influenced people to do, this is probably one of the better ones, because now people were like, what's private equity?
Yeah.
That's the first question. It's like, all right, at least now people are paying attention to that sector because of her.
And I have some friends, Jens and Eric, that I think Jens actually started Skims, the business with her. And look at what that business has done, right? So,
him and his wife.
Yeah. So
incredible.
You got Emma. So you got to respect, like, again, like look at that business, right? So I think, those are true people that are influencing culture and society. Some may say for better or for worse.
Here's another thing, because we were just talking earlier about like needing a team. That's the perfect example. Skims, Jens and Emma.
Yep.
And Kim. And so if you're a celebrity and you have a big following, and you think to yourself, and not just celebrity, influencer, and you have a big following, and you think to yourself, okay, maybe I don't have the time or the expertise or the knowledge to take the entrepreneurial path, but someone else does that I trust, that's a really good partnership.
Yeah,
that's a really good partnership.
Kind of getting back to what you were saying, it's all about teams, right? And it's about an army, right? Because even for my own company, I never want to do it alone. You're only as good as your team. So I think it is really important to connect with people that are experts in parts of the business. If you're not, like if you're getting into the lingerie business and you don't know the lingerie business, well, hook up with someone that obviously can lead you in the right direction. So yeah, again, a great. Well, so Jens and Eric, they're partners, and they've been in fashion for many, many years. They have a magazine. They were creative directors, photographers. So obviously, they all met and they connected, and I think the results are incredibly successful. I mean, I don't know every aspect of the Skims business, but it seems like it's doing pretty well. So
Killing it.
I'm going to imagine that it's worth quite a lot of money.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah. So I've always diversified. I've always done other things. And especially during the pandemic, I think everyone had to pivot. So, the fashion business essentially shut down for like a year and a half and the model
Because
business.
of the pandemic?
Obviously, the influencer business was still going. And thank God that's what kept me afloat in my company. But the modeling business was completely shut down. I mean, you're talking about sending people to a set, right? So there's not one person on set. There's 3, 5, 10, 20 hair, makeup, stylist, art director, photographer, client, model, assistants, whatever there is. And in the end, I mean, you remember I talk about this a lot on my show, but early on, I always quote a friend of mine, Gavin Rosdale from Bush, when I interviewed him earlier. He's like, we didn't know if we could get it from a tree, being COVID, right? And I said to him the other day, like, remember when we were like wiping down our bananas and cereal boxes?
Oh my God, our groceries.
I don't know if anyone really got it from a banana, but in the end, we didn't. If you went on a date and you happen to kiss someone, you're like, well, I could die if I do this. I'm not going to kiss anyone. So it was serious, and we were all taking it very seriously. So the fashion modeling business essentially just shut down for like a year and a half. So thank God I was still working with influencers. A lot of people were doing like content shoots at their house. So you would send someone, whatever brand would send someone a pair of jeans, and maybe we were there was a time when we were looking for models that had boyfriends that were photographers, because that worked for us. We didn't have to send someone somewhere. Again, this is when you couldn't leave your house. So we needed to find people that would just kind of create content, within their house.
Most of my friends that are big influencers, their boyfriends or their moms or something are taking photos of them.
Yeah. I mean, we looked for it, but also that was a request from clients, right? There was still a lot of clients that needed to create some content, but no one was sending people anywhere. I mean, when we were under lockdown, you couldn't go anywhere. So, luckily everyone had to, find ways to survive. Luckily, I was fortunate enough to pivot and really concentrate on that side of the business. But it was challenging, it was certainly challenging and I think we're still playing catch up from the last couple of years, right? So you always meet these people, like my buddies in gaming, and his industry was really thriving because everyone was at home.
At home, yeah.
Playing games, right? If you're a kid and you're playing video games, like that's what you do. You're not playing them on the street, you're playing them at your house.
Yeah.
But I would not say that the fashion and the modeling business was like really thriving. And even brands that hire celebrities were very reluctant to spend money during that time period. It was the great unknown with anything. And brands were not like, there's no way we're spending $500,000 on a celebrity. We don't know if stores are going to be open tomorrow. We don't know if we're going to have to close all our retail stores. So brands were comfortable spending sometimes $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, but not, you had to like fight for every dollar you made, because there was this great uncertainty in life that we were all trying to figure out.
Balenciaga. Wipe it or go for it?
I'm not a controversial guy, but I will say that I feel, here's the only thing I'll say about it, right? I feel like when brands do ad campaigns, they are all very well aware of what they're doing. No one does an ad campaign and the higher-ups don't sign off on it. So, I mean, I didn't love the fact that they were trying to push it off to like the production company and the photographer, saying we didn't really know what was going on. Like, really? Like, everyone is aware of it and signs off on it. So I would just say that brands should take responsibility. If they are, working a campaign, they are responsible for the campaign too, because there is no way any brand doesn't know what campaign they're shooting, right? Like, I don't know any brands that say to a photographer, just do whatever you want and call us in a week. Like, it doesn't work like that. So especially a multi-million-dollar brand like that, they know what they're doing. I think with anything now, you just have to, if you're going to do something, you have to own up to it and take responsibility, right? So, I mean, I don't make any decisions that I'm not accountable for. I feel very good that I can look myself in the mirror, that I'm nice to people every day, and I treat people well, and I'm kind to people. I mean, I guess when I was younger, if like maybe I didn't spend 10 minutes to talking to people, and if I ran into someone, and now I like try and go out of my way because it's hard and everyone needs help. And so like, why not just bound together, and kind of what we were talking about before, like there needs to be more positivity in this world.
Okay, there's a question that I ask everybody that comes on this show.
Sure.
And it's a hypothetical scenario.
I'm only the second guest, so you say everyone. I'm the second.
Okay, sorry. You're the second guest, but I will ask it to everyone.
I know,
And I'm always on Twitter Spaces,
okay.
I do ask it on my other shows.
I know. I'm just being my funny self. I don't know.
So it's a hypothetical scenario, and basically it narrows down something that I feel like most people struggle with, which is everybody has so many, things that are important to them, messages that they want to share with the world, that they think are urgent, important priorities. And this just narrows it down. So the scenario is this. You are at the Oscars and you win an award.
What am I winning it for, by the way?
Are you more of like you want to produce your own movie or a
No, I don't know what I'm winning it for. I just want to know what I'm winning it for.
I feel like you're more of a. I feel like you're more of a documentary.
I love documentaries. I love documentaries.
I got that vibe.
Yes.
So you produced a documentary.
Okay.
And you're nominated, and you're sitting in your chair, and all of a sudden they call your name, and you walk up to the stage, and of course you thank everyone that you need to thank, all of your former assistants, I'm assuming. Your parents, everybody. And then there's that 1 minute after where you get to speak, and then they play that music to let you know you have to stop talking.
And then they take the cane and rope you off the stage because you're talking to
them. Do they
them.
do that?
I don't know. I think that was in like the movies years ago.
Yeah. But here's the thing about that 1 minute is there's headlines about it. It's going to be on YouTube forever and ever and ever. And if it's powerful enough, it gets shared all over social media.
Sure.
So what's your thing that you would say in that 1 minute that's so important to you that you think needs to be urgently shared with the world?
Again, I don't have kids, but if I had kids, I think I'd be incredibly supportive of whatever they wanted to do in life. My parents, as I mentioned to you before, when I told them I wanted to go to drumming school and join a Guns N' Roses type of rock band at 17, were probably not thrilled. But in the end, they were very supportive, and they allowed me to be who I wanted to be. And I think hopefully that's led to a great life filled with a lot of, I'm very blessed and fortunate accomplishments. So just the fact that I had incredibly supportive parents that are the best people in the world, and luckily I had their support in following my past and my dreams in life. And, I think it all comes down to hard work. I mean, I feel like, again, we're in a different culture now, like than from when I grew up. But I mean, the main thing, even when I work with talent now, the people that hustle and work really hard are the ones that usually achieve what they want to achieve and achieve their goals and dreams. So I would say when anybody asks me like the secret recipe for success, I mean, there is none other than if you're really talented and you work really hard, you'll usually get one shot. And that shot can be presented in the form of you're an actress, like, or an actor, like a role or, a movie, or if you're a model, a big gig or whatever it may be. But then it's up to the universe and your hard work for everything else to happen. So I think that hard work for me is always, and having parents that are very supportive and following your dreams and paths, I think that's what I would say.
Scott, there's one thing I haven't touched on yet, and that's your podcast. Tell me about that.
Sure. So I feel like there's like 5 million podcasts now, and it's really hard to stand out in the world. I mean, maybe there's 5 million, maybe there's more. I don't know.
There might be more.
I started a podcast called Lip Service about 4 years ago. I did a partnership with Spin Magazine about a year and a half ago, Spin being one of the 2 or 3 biggest music magazines out there. And like the last year or so, it's been trending like top 20 music interviews in the U.S. And so I put a lot of effort into it. It's people's life journeys and their past in life. And it's almost like how I built this, but applied to musicians. So I always loved that show. NPR is how I built this. Guy Raz and
incredible show, yeah.
I'm sure you've listened to it a bunch, and he's got like CEOs on it, CMOs, to entrepreneurs, to humanitarians, whatever it may be. And I love hearing people's stories of like, they're down in the dumps 1 minute, the next minute they're worth $1 billion, and how did they get there? And everyone has a story where they're like, I was down to my last 35 cents and eating McDonald's, and then I made $1 million. It's like
Scott, remember when you were driving people?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, and now look at you.
I'm still driving myself.
Scott, thank you for coming on. Thanks for
coming
here.
Yeah, of course.
On such short notice. Like, that was so cool of you. We hadn't met in
course.
person. We have talked.
By the way, Burbank, I'm never in Burbank. I don't even know what's here. It's like, I don't live that far from Burbank, but I almost never
A lot
come
of
to
stuff,
Burbank.
a lot of
I know. I don't come to
entertainment
Burbank.
companies. Yeah.
I just never come to Burbank.
I never used to come to Burbank, but now I am here at least half the week. I'm here a lot.
It's a funny thing with like proximity in LA when people say like, all right, well, you want to meet me? Where is it? Right. And then you like look it up. Oh shit. That's like 45
Oh
minutes
yeah.
from me.
All the time.
I
You
can't
think
do
it's
that.
going to be
I
fine.
I can't do that. That's really too far.
Yeah, that's the thing. Don't agree to go somewhere in LA if you have not looked on the map. What's the distance between you and that place? Because it may be an hour and a half.
Like, I really like you, but if you had said this thing was in Costa Mesa, I would have been like, I don't know. I think I'm busy today, you know?
Wait, but you said yes to Burbank.
Burbank, I can handle. Costa Mesa. I'm not a great driver, too, so it's like any place that's like really far, you know? It's like I can't see that well at night. It's some of the things that get like more enticing when you get older, like your eyesight starts to go. Apparently, people start to hurt places. That hasn't happened to me yet, but like your back hurts. I mean, I'm been pretty fortunate. But by the way,
Your back doesn't hurt yet,
it doesn't.
Scott?
All you have is your health, because you know you hear all these like crazy stories of like people that are fine one day and then the next something terrible happens. Like, you really should never take for granted your health. That's all you have in life. So that is one thing I learned, especially during this last couple of years. Like, be so thankful if you're healthy and just live every moment. And
Do you have a gratitude practice?
I don't, but I think I'm pretty grateful just in general to like the universe or giving me whatever. Like, I always tell people I'm very rich in life because I've had some incredible life experiences, like the Hollywood Bowl. Like, I never in a million years thought I would play there.
Nuts.
Like,
Incredible.
that was like the greatest day of my life. I still don't know that it happened, but I've been very fortunate and very grateful for anything like that that's happened. So I don't have a gratitude practice, but again, another thing between the Aura Ring and the Unplugged class, you're going to show me that
I have
learn
more.
from
The
you.
thing is, my brain keeps going as you're talking.
So-
I feel, okay, just after talking to you and after knowing you and the people that I know who know you and have spoken highly of you, I feel like you maintain your relationships very well.
I try. Again, that's all you have in life, right? You have like putting that out there in the world and being good to people. And hopefully, you know, I built my business on representing a couple of people early on. They told their friends that I was like great at what I did, hopefully, or we were great at what we were doing. And they told another person. And that's how you build a business, just by doing good by people. And they hopefully tell their friends.
Yeah, I think reputation and character will take you so far.
Definitely.
And it's sad to say, but the fact that some people don't focus on it, it really makes the people who do stand out. And word of mouth just takes care of the rest. Like,
Definitely.
you actually do get rewarded for being a good person. I feel like sometimes,
I mean, you hope, right?
I mean, if you do a good job,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you do a good job and you're nice,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a win.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, Scott, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Today's episode of Beyond is brought to you by MoonPay. MoonPay is your portal to Web3 where you can transact with peers globally and own your digital identity. MoonPay makes it fast and simple to jumpstart your Web3 journey. Quickly use your debit or credit card to buy and sell crypto and purchase digital collectibles. Visit moonpay.com to get started.